Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, welcome. I'm Regina Bucola. I come by my pro-choice credentials via ICAT, the Illinois Choice Action Team. We are the state affiliate of NARAL nationwide. And I come by my MC cred from Democracy Burlesque, Chicago's only all-political sketch comedy show. And ICAT is actually going to be the beneficiary of our show on election night in November. So watch for that as another way to support pro-choice. Welcome to the All Above All's Be Bold Road Trip Chicago! 10,000 miles, 12 cities, 8 states, one amazing road trip. And of course, all of you, each and every one of you who's standing up here today is standing up to politicians who want to take away our decisions about how we form our families. So thank you for coming out here to humid, but still not rainy, Chicago. So today you unite with people all over this country who are standing together to say, enough is enough. Hashtag that, tweet it, Facebook it. We're sending this message to Washington to tell the politicians there that they need to stop targeting those of us who are struggling to get by. Bans on abortion coverage have got to go in every form. They tend to target low-income communities, and you know what that means, many of you standing here. That means people of color, young people, immigrants. We are taking action. That's why we're here today. We won't be targeted anymore, so let's get started. First, I want to turn things over to Sylvia Enriquez, All Above All Coalition Director.
Thank you so much, Regina, and thank you, Chicago, for coming out today. So my name is Sylvia Enriquez, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about the All Above All campaign and how we got started. 3 years ago, 42 organizations, national and statewide, came together to say enough is enough. It's time to stand up for women who can't access abortion coverage. And we formed the CARE Coalition. A year ago, we became public, and that is how you see All Above All. Last year, we did house parties in different cities. We went on Facebook, we have a website, but this year we took to the streets, and that's why we're here today. So the campaign was formed with a very simple premise. Wherever we live, however much we make, all of us must be able to make our own decisions about pregnancy. All of us, not some of us, even if we're struggling to get by. Since the Hyde Amendment passed in 1976, Congress has withheld coverage for abortion services from women insured through Medicaid. That is now 9 million women of reproductive age. But it's a new day. We're standing up to say enough. The Be Bold road trip and this campaign, All Above All, is about taking to the streets. We launched the road trip in LA on August 9th. Now we are here today with you, Chicago, and we are asking you to stand up with us. We are sending letters to Congress. We're signing petitions. Make sure you sign yours. We're sending pictures, so please go to the selfie booth and get your picture taken. And know that we will carry every one of you with us when we end this road trip in Washington, D.C. I know you have the courage to join this campaign, so let me hear you. Are you ready to be brave? Yeah! Are you ready to be bold? Yeah! Are you ready to stand united until every woman can make her own decisions based on her own circumstances, no matter what her income is? Yeah! Thank you, Chicago, for hosting the All Above All campaign. And now it is my pleasure to turn it over to Lori Lori, who is one of our key partners here in Chicago. And without Lori, none of this could have really happened. So thank you so much for all your work with All Above All.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you everyone for being here today. I'm Lori Chayton. I'm the director of the Reproductive Rights Project for the ACLU of Illinois. The ACLU seeks through litigation and public advocacy and legislative advocacy to ensure that all in our society have access to the full range of reproductive health care, including safe, affordable abortion care. We are proud to be here with All Above All today and with all of you to say it is time to stop messing with women's lives. It is time to stop restricting access to women's health care, and it is time to restore and sustain abortion coverage for low-income women. We've lived with the harms of the Hyde Amendment for too long. Year after year, low-income women, who are disproportionately women of color, are denied essential health care. Abortion coverage bans undermine gender equity, and they violate the foundational principles of Stroger Hospital for $75. Thanks to the amazing leadership of two public officials standing right here, Toni Preckwinkle and Mike Quigley. And because of our court victories, Medicaid covers medically necessary abortions in Illinois. But that is not enough. For many women, even having to pay $75 means giving up something. Food, rent, heat, paying to support the children they already have. We are here today to say enough is enough. It is time to repeal Hyde and ensure that all women get access to care. It is now my absolute pleasure to introduce some of our nation's strongest advocates for reproductive justice. Mike Quigley, a true champion for lifting bans that deny abortion coverage. He's known for being an ardent force for environmental protection, equal rights, and ethical open government. A member of the Appropriations Committee for the past several years, Congressman Quigley has introduced an amendment to lift the ban that bars the District of Columbia from using locally raised dollars to provide abortion coverage for its low-income residents. As a member of the Cook County Board, he was instrumental in securing and advancing abortion services at Stroger Hospital. The 5th District and supporters of the Be Bold road trip could not ask for a better champion than Representative Quigley. So come on up here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a short swim here today. Thank you all for doing what you do. And on behalf of my colleague Jan Schakowsky, who will be here shortly, my good friend President Preckwinkle, for the work that you are all doing. You know, we have our jobs on a day-to-day basis, but many of you are in the trenches fighting this fight. And we want to thank above all, so much. And NARAL, Planned Parenthood, they do extraordinary work in Washington, D.C. So I'm going to start off telling you the bad news and then being optimistic, because that's what Cub fans do. And by the way, anybody can have a bad century, okay? Here's the bad news. We're in the minority in D.C., right? We don't have enough votes. There's maybe 170-something solid pro-choice votes in the House of Representatives. And we have to change that. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. Every chance they get, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle put a rider in any kind of bill they possibly can to restrict a woman's right to choose. Particularly in D.C., which they see as their own little fiefdom, right? They're big proponents of states' rights, individual rights, and being a conservative, let people decide what to do with themselves. Big government out of our lives, except you. Something about being in Washington, D.C., or being a woman, and they have a different view. The second way of looking at it is, I'm sorry Jan's not here, because she gave me some awesome advice when I got there. She said, you're going to have access to the greatest minds in the world. We get called on by Nobel laureates, the best and brightest of universities. We have great staff. I mean, there's no excuse for members of Congress to not know the facts of issues, right? But I serve with people, including the Speaker of the House, who doesn't believe in climate change, right? Doesn't believe. I serve with people who don't believe in evolution. I serve with people who are firmly convinced that we were trod upon by dinosaurs. Why does this matter to you? Because if it was in tune with their political sense, they would defy the laws of gravity, challenge that. Why does it matter to you? Because you see what happens to the policy that affects you. You see some very peculiar beliefs about how reproductive system works by people running for the Senate. We saw it in the last elections. So the best I can put this is, you've got a great group of people with that 177. All that matters is 218. Everything else, I'm a messenger. I can introduce the amendments in the Appropriations Committee, but I want to be the chairman of the subcommittee that provides the assistance that you need. And the only way that happens is if people wake up and turn out to vote on all of these elections. So, that's the other thing that Jan will tell you. Elections matter, elections matter, elections matter. Until we get to 218, we're all messengers. We get to 218, we can get things the way they should be. You know, usually when the Supreme Court makes a decision like Roe versus Wade, the debate ends. In this case, the debate just began. And we've been on the defensive ever since. You see what states are doing. Hundreds of regulations and rules, burdensome rules, unconstitutional at the very best, that are passed every single year to continue to limit. We are going to face that until we get to 218 in the House. 218 at least pro-choice members of the House of Representatives. And that's a tough task. So, first, what I said first is true. Thank you so much for what you do, right? People say, how'd you become a feminist? I don't know. I have 2 daughters. It's a really good start to make you think about these issues as you go forward. So on behalf of my daughters, my wife, all my friends, and everyone else, thank you so much for the work you do and the great fight you're taking on. And we have a long way to go. Elections matter, elections matter, elections matter. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Congressman Quigley. Our next speaker, another fabulous champion of social and reproductive justice, is Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle. As a member of the Chicago City Council, she led the charge for affordable housing and sponsored important living wage ordinances. As Cook County Board President, among many other things, she has established and is overseeing the implementation of one of the largest Medicaid expansion programs in the country. And of course, she has been unyielding in her support for securing and expanding abortion services at Stroger Hospital. It is my true pleasure now to invite Toni Preckwinkle to the mic.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I am very grateful to be here. As you heard, I've spent some time in the City Council in Chicago, and for the last 4 years I've been president of the county. But I'm actually a history teacher by profession, and I always think as a history teacher it's important to talk about context a little bit. So let me just say, you know, there's an old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. Well, these are surely interesting times. There's some respects, especially here in Illinois, in which we've made great progress. After all, we now have marriage equality in this state, and that's a major milestone, and it's really helpful, not just for folks here in Illinois, but on the national stage as well. Because the more states that pass equal marriage laws, the more that seems to be the future of this country, and that's a good thing. At the same time that we're making progress in that arena across the country, it seems often that we're moving backwards in other respects. If you think about the immigration debate, for example, and the terrible vitriol directed against people who come to this country for religious freedom or economic opportunity or fleeing persecution, you know, you feel like you're back in the debates of the early part of the 20th century when there were waves and waves of immigrants and there was a lot of hostility to immigrants. And somehow you think we should be beyond that, and we're clearly not. So if you look at immigration, if you look at voting rights, Congressman Quigley talked about the importance of elections. And all across the country there are efforts to restrict the right to vote. You know, ID laws and all kinds of measures that make it harder for people to register and then to vote. And that reminds me of my young adulthood and adolescence in the 1960s when there were struggles across this country around voting for African Americans in the South. And you had that terrible sense that people believe that somehow if those people, whoever those people are, have an opportunity to vote, our country's going to be changed in some awful, destructive way. And most of this is about, frankly, income and race. And it's very, very troubling. And then we get to the issue of women's reproductive health. And again, there was a time in this country when the discussions were all about abortion. Now they're about contraception. They're not even they're not even about abortion. They're about access to contraception, which seems like many steps backwards from where we were just several decades ago. And I'm proud in Cook County we have a Medicaid expansion program approved, by the way, by the governor of the state of Illinois and our state legislature. The state of Illinois chose to be part of the Affordable Care Act, and as a result, we have a Medicaid program in Cook County that now insures 100,000 people who didn't have insurance 2 years ago. 100,000 people, half of whom are women. And that's because the state legislature and the governor, in contrast to some of the states around us, were willing to be part of health care reform. And let me just say, I probably shouldn't talk so explicitly about politics, but the Republican candidate for governor in the state of Illinois has said that he is opposed to the Affordable Care Act. Opposed. So, we've, as I said, we've provided health care coverage, including access to primary care and behavioral therapy and substance abuse treatment for all of the people who are part of our Medicaid expansion. And again, half of them are women. That's 50,000 women who didn't have insurance before. And this is in addition to the services that the county has always provided, namely abortions at nominal cost. It's now $75. So I'm very proud of the work that we've done in Cook County in the state of Illinois, and I'm grateful to all of you for the work that you've done around reproductive health for women. Because we're at a point in time where we're not going to hold on to our gains or make any progress without a tremendous struggle. And I'm grateful to all of you for the time and energy that you've put into this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, President Preckwinkle, for your remarks. My name is Brittany Mostiller, and I'm the Deputy Director at Chicago Abortion Fund. Chicago Abortion Fund is a reproductive justice organization that provides financial assistance to women seeking second trimester abortion services. We also do a lot of advocacy and education around reproductive justice. As Deputy Director at Chicago Abortion Fund, I know firsthand the effects of such restrictions as the Hyde Amendment and other abortion restrictions throughout the country, the state, here in the city. We receive hundreds of calls per year from women needing financial assistance. We fund women we serve. They are about 80% women of color, low-income women. They work low-income wages. They are mothers. They are struggling to make ends meet. This is their reality. And I also know firsthand of these struggles because I've had an abortion. I received funding from Chicago Abortion Fund in 2007. I was a mother of 3 at the time, 3 young girls, struggling. I was working at a local grocery store, sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with my sister. When I called Chicago Abortion Fund, I was desperate. I didn't know where to go, how I was going to pay for my abortion. I know I made that decision to have one, but I couldn't access it. So I stand here today representing all of the women throughout the country who are affected by such restrictions as the Hyde Amendment. This is our reality. These are our lived experiences. We've heard stories earlier from other women across the country who've also shared my experience as well. And so I just stand here today to let everyone know that this is real. This is our reality. We need to do everything possible. We need to be bold. We need to be brave. We need to contact our elected officials because this is happening to women every day. Our next speaker is board-certified obstetrician and gynecologist. He provides abortion care here in Chicago at Family Planning Associates and is a faculty member at the Feinberg School of Medicine of Northwestern University. He also resides on the board of directors for Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, as well as Physicians for Reproductive Health. But he is so much more. Dr. Willie Parker is the definition of bold and brave. Having grown up in the Deep South, Dr. Parker has returned to his roots he's returned to his roots to make sure that women in Alabama and Mississippi have access to safe abortion care, despite the continued attempts by politicians in those states to shut down abortion care. Dr. Parker does this not despite his Christian faith, but because of it. We are greatly honored to have this reproductive justice hero today. Everyone, Dr. Willie Parker.
Hello. I have a word of, I have a recommendation for the planners. You should never make the person introducing the person a stronger speaker than the person. You know, at the rock concert, they usually have a person to open, and that person's called the hype man. You know? And I fear that my hype person is a stronger speaker. So I really appreciate you for that generous introduction, as well as for your courage in making your disclosure to put a face on the reality. You know, you referenced my Christian background, and you know we're given to slogans and jingoism. There's one of them that says that one of the things that you should always realize is that every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. And I hate that language around sinner and saint, but in terms of the fact that you made it clear that, you know, being in a situation where you choose abortion, it doesn't define you. It's a stop on the road. It's not the end of the road. So thank you for putting a face on that. I am actually honored to be here today to add my voice. And I must say, being able to stand on this platform in Chicago, where I'm staying is right around the corner from where the Haymarket Rebellion was. So there's a strong tradition here in Chicago of having public events that ultimately change civilization as we know it. And so that we're here today and that I can lend my voice to this effort humbles me and honors me. I'm happy to add my voice to the people who've been going across the country on this road trip. And what I know today about you being here tells me that you all understand that in addition to keeping abortion legal, that we have to come up with ways for women to access it in a dignified way. And that means that we have to remove the barriers that oftentimes keep women from accessing abortion who need it the most. Someone once said that we're all created equal, but somehow it seems that some of us are more equal than others. As we celebrate 41 years of legal abortion, it's really easy to overlook the fact that politicians have all but enshrined a two-tiered healthcare system that leaves the poorest women amongst us oftentimes struggling for the very services that they need. Given that roughly half of all pregnancies are unintended and many of them are unwanted, any healthcare coverage has to simply include abortion. Now, as was told to you, I work every day with women making decisions about pregnancy. I know firsthand the dire impact of what the laws that prevent women from having access to abortion. I know firsthand what it does to them mentally, physically, spiritually, and economically. Take Mississippi, for example, where I work. Mississippi, 20% of all Mississippians live below the poverty level, but 42% of black people in Mississippi live in poverty, and most of them are women and children. That simply should not be the case. As I said about 3 weeks ago when I testified before the U.S. Senate, the aspirations of a woman, or anyone for that matter, with regard to their health should not depend on their zip code. We now live in a reality where poor women, because of how they fund their care, are being discriminated against. Every year, as Representative Quigley told us, anti-abortion politicians send a message to women who rely on Medicaid for their care. And this is the message. It is that we are going to deny you access to abortion care just because we disagree with your decision. And we're going to do that without knowing anything about your decision, but we're going to do that anyway. That's the message that politicians send to women. This kind of thinking has entrenched discrimination with regard to the ability to cover the health care of women in the form of abortion. And contrary to what they say, this kind of thinking lets us know that some people in power think that there are women who deserve to have the full array of healthcare services, and there are women who don't deserve that simply because of how they pay for their care. Now, that's a distinction that in this country, quite frankly, we should be ashamed, embarrassed, and quite uncomfortable with. And it was those very realities that prompted me as a scientist, as a physician, and as a person with Christian beliefs to add abortion care to my practice after the first 12 years of not doing so. Because what happened for me is it became clear to me that it is impossible to separate out from a woman's general health care needs abortion. We simply cannot pull that need out of the context of a woman's life. That is simply not acceptable. You know, I read somewhere that when you wrestle with your conscience and you lose, that you actually win. And for me, I lost that battle of conscience about 10 years ago when I decided to begin providing abortions for women, because when I recognized that women needed this care, because when they presented to me with planned but lethally flawed pregnancies or unwanted pregnancies, that it became more important to me to make sure that they had someone to provide safe care for them and what might happen to me for providing that care. So that for me started to feel like a calling, because it led me to conclude that not only is providing abortion the right thing to do, it is also the moral thing to do. And that's why I'm committed to making sure that women in areas where they're most vulnerable have access to this care and can do so safely and in dignity. And that prompted me to move back home to my home state of Alabama, as well as to continue providing care in Mississippi, in the only clinic that remains open there. So this is how real it gets when it comes to this. The person who introduced put a face on it, but I see women all the time, and there's one particular story that I want to tell you about. There was a young woman that I recently provided care for in Mississippi who had an unplanned pregnancy, and she was pregnant by a man whose family was staunchly against abortion. She was a young woman who had aspirations to go to medical school, and based on my assessment of her, she's certainly bright enough to do that. But she lives in poverty and is on Medicaid and found herself without the ability to pay for her abortion. So on the day that she came for her services, she brought with her her grandmother, who was there to support her. And what she told me before I did her procedure, she said that her grandmother, who was there supporting her, had actually sold her living room couch to pay for her abortion. Now, I don't know about you, her grandmother's my hero. Because we live and when you live in a society where women are discriminated against and marginalized, everybody needs a granny like that. If we were in the hood, we would say her granny was ride or die, because her grandmother was there for her at the moment that she needed her most. So here's the bottom line. Every woman needs this care. Every woman needs this care without regard to her ability to pay. We should not be comfortable with a situation where women cannot access this care when they need it. We should trust that women are equipped spiritually, mentally, and psychologically to make this decision, and that they don't need anybody else to make this decision for them. And we should do everything we can to stop people from making this decision for them by trying to affect the ways in which they can fund it. All health insurance plans should cover abortion, whether it is federally funded, whether it's privately insured. So that means is that you and all of us have to, in the spirit of being out here today, tell anybody who will listen, that is our friends, our family, legislators, that women deserve access to safe, medically accurate sex education, abortion care, and they deserve these things in the context of privacy, dignity, and respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parker. What an amazing constellation of pro-choice superheroes in Illinois we have had here this afternoon so far. Thank you. All Above All is a coalition of more than 50 national and state organizations. And some of the organizations here in Chicago that are part of it have been especially helpful in organizing and promoting this event today as have other local and national partners, including the ACLU, the Chicago Abortion Fund, the Illinois Caucus for Adolescent Health, the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, the National Abortion Federation, the National Network of Abortion Funds, Abortion Care Network, and the National Council of Jewish Women. All above all simply could not have made this road trip possible without them, so let's hear it for all of them. Many of our partners are represented here today, and I want to take a moment to invite a few of them to come up and say a few words. First, please welcome Reverend Rachel Burkhan Rommelfanger. Reverend Rommelfanger is the lead pastor at Berry United Methodist Church in Chicago's Lincoln Square neighborhood. She's been an advocate in the United Methodist Church at both the local and the national level, particularly concerning issues including racial justice, LGBTQ inclusion, women's empowerment and reproductive rights, immigration justice, global health, and environmental justice. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Rachel.
So we've heard a lot of great stories and witness and testimonies today, and that really connects for me as a person of faith, because Muhammad, the prophets, Jesus, Buddha, they all talked in stories to help people understand the issues pressing in our time. And so I want to share a quick story about a bold woman with all of you today. So a long time ago, Jesus was talking to his disciples about the need to pray and never give up. And he said, in a certain city, there was a widow, and there was also a judge, and he neither feared God nor people. And that widow came to visit him and said, "Give me justice against my opponent." And the judge, he turned her away. But after a while, the widow kept coming. And so the judge said, "Well, I don't fear God or respect people, but because this woman keeps bothering me, I will give her what she wants. So she will stop embarrassing me and beating me black and blue with her request." And then Jesus turned to his disciples and he said, "Will not God answer his people who cry out day and night for justice?" So I stand before you today crying out for justice for all women in our country. Crying out as a United Methodist pastor, saying our government needs to allow women the access to full reproductive health care, no matter their income level or their type of insurance. And I ask you to consider, what will you do? Both those gathered here and our elected officials far away. What will you do when you hear the widow, the women crying out for justice? I am responding by saying everyone needs equal access. Everyone should be respected and honored. And the hope is, it doesn't matter if the judge fears us or respects us, because justice will always win, like that widow in this story. So I'll say that as we are a people called to build a more compassionate society, we support women and families in making the choice that is right for them. And they can only do that when they are allowed access to health care without regard to their economic status. The choice that they have thought about spiritually with their conscience and talked about with their families. Let's support that today and ask our elected officials to allow access for all women to full health care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is now my pleasure to introduce Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, a true champion for reproductive decision-making. She is a strong, progressive voice in Congress, dedicated to making sure everyone has access to affordable health care, as well as advancing women's social and economic justice. She's a founding member of the Equality Caucus and also participates in the Progressive Caucus, the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, Congressional Caucus on Women's Issues, and of course, is a leading member of the pro-choice caucus. Representative Schakowsky has been a strong and active supporter of All Above All from the very beginning, and we are so happy to have her voice added as a part of the Be Bold road trip, especially given that she just flew in to speak here today. So please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Well, thank you so much. The All Above All road trip coming here. I am so sick of being in a defensive crouch about our rights, and thank you for taking us on the offense. You know, really, I have heard enough. Oh, well, we want to make, we've already made sure that there's no public dollars for abortion. What other health service do you know of where no public dollars are allowed? That's just ridiculous. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it for federal employees. I'm tired of it for women in the military. I'm tired of it for women in prisons. I am tired of it for all the women, the 1 in 7 women on Medicaid. Enough is enough. I want to tell you something, sisters, and secure brothers and helpful brothers, feminist brothers, that this is the century of women, this 21st century, and we are not going to allow ourselves to not make the decisions that affect us. We're not good. Every single woman should have the right, and we're going to demand that right to make the decisions about our own bodies, to make the decisions about what size family that we want. We are not going to let 5 men on the Supreme Court take us back, drag us back. We're going to keep fighting. For a long time, the pro-choice movement has said, the real agenda is contraception. And people would say, oh, no, of course not. 99% of women in their reproductive years use family planning, and men are all supportive of it. And now we find out it's absolutely true. They want to stop us from even being able, and those 5 guys on the Supreme Court, how dare they? How dare they? Really, how dare they? We have to go into contortions in the Congress and trying to figure out how we're going to be able to get contraception. I'm telling you, we have to be more aggressive on the offense, and that's exactly what the Be Bold road trip is all about. Thank you for coming to Chicago. Thank you for speaking truth to power and organizing, because we will not take that. We're in a little valley right now, my sisters. I know it. We know it. States that have been gerrymandered and all these guys who have taken over, and some of the women who have gone along with them, I'm sad to say. We don't have one woman on the Republican side of the aisle. When I got to Congress in 1999, we had a bipartisan pro-choice caucus. There was a Republican who was the co-chair with a Democrat that was the co-chair. There was no shame in it. And look what they have done. And believe me, they are the minority. The people who are trying to push us back and trying to take away our rights, they are the minority. And it's efforts like this that are organizing women, but not only that, validating women, giving voice to women's demands. Thank you for that. We're not going to go back, and we're not going to apologize, and we are not going to trim. We are going to go forward. Every woman deserves the right to her reproductive freedom, the right to have an abortion, the right to make her decision, the right to contraceptions. We will win this battle. I promise you. I promise you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I'm embarrassed to pass such a powerful speaker, but I'll do my best. Good afternoon. My name is Roshni Shakari, and I'm an attorney at the ACLU of Illinois, where every day we see how young people are hurt when their access to abortion care is restricted. 1 year ago, our parental notice law went into effect. Now, young women are forced to tell a partner, a parent, or a court about their abortion decision. For many young women, forced notification of a family member will result in them being abused, kicked out of the home, or forced to carry a pregnancy to term against their will. Their only alternative is to go to court and share with the judge the most intimate aspects of their lives, hoping that the judge will grant them a waiver so they can get their abortion. The ACLU's Judicial Bypass Coordination Project has worked with hundreds of young women who have to figure out how they can comply with the law without putting themselves at risk, how they can get to court, how they can pay for the abortion, how they can get to the clinic, how they can pay for transportation, and they have to figure out how to do all of these things without anyone finding out. Some of our clients are working low-wage, part-time jobs, or are desperately seeking work while also attending school. They are saving up the little money they make to try to pay for their education, to help cover family living expenses, or to support the children they already have. They struggle to come up with the money just to get to court and then to the clinic. For most of our clients, despite the tremendous work of abortion funds and subsidized abortions at Stroger Hospital, the cost of an abortion is an enormous obstacle. As they try to save up money, they delay getting the care they need. And as they delay, the costs become greater. They're forced to compromise on their care. Women who planned on having medical abortions are forced by delay to get surgical abortions. Women who planned on having one-day procedures are forced by delay to have two-day procedures. And for some young women, the burden of lack of insurance coverage, the parental notification law, and all the other obstacles they face means they never get the care they need. Denial of abortion coverage is denial of essential health care. It is an injustice, it is discrimination, and it has to end. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yamani Hernandez, and I'm the Executive Director at the Illinois Caucus for Adolescent Health, ICA. Yeah, thank you. We believe that all youth deserve to be safe, affirmed, and healthy, and that human rights don't start when you turn 18. We work on the sexual health, rights, and identities of youth, and today I'm here to talk to you about the impacts of the parental notice of abortion law. We've been working side by side with youth leaders to repeal forced parental notification, and since the law was enforced last August. The young people we work with are quick to point out how unjust this law is. These are some of the things that they ask. If we're not getting the sex education we need in schools, how are we supposed to make these important decisions? And I want to tell you that there's 38 out of 50 states that have parental involvement laws, and 25 out of those 38 states aren't offering comprehensive sex ed. This is another thing they ask. If I can't afford to have an abortion, how am I supposed to afford being a parent? If I'm going to choose someone I trust to help me, why do I need the government to tell me who qualifies? I know better than anyone who I can trust. If lawmakers are setting up barriers for me to access safe and legal healthcare services, how can I trust them? And this is especially important in a place like Chicago, where there's so many concerns over how young people and the law interface. When I started this work at ICA, I joined the board in 2007. I was compelled to join this work because a young person that I was working with came to me and told me they were willing to pay a bunch of other young people $10 a piece to physically beat her up so that she wouldn't have to have an abortion. This is unacceptable. It's just completely unacceptable, and she is the reason why I do this work, honestly. We should not, in 2014, be having to deal with people resorting to violence instead of getting a perfectly safe and legal procedure. Thank you. Again and again, youth are encountering no-win situations. They're told they can't have access to sex ed, They're told if they get pregnant, they're going to get kicked out of the house. They're told that they can't access abortion without forcibly notifying their parents and risking harm. That's why we all need to work together to stop parental notice of abortion. I want everybody to shout with me 5 times. I'm going to say stop P&A. I'm going to say stop, and I want you to say P&A. Stop! P&A! Stop! P&A! Stop! P&A! Stop! P&A! Stop! P&A! Thank you.
Can you all hear me? My name is Nicole Goss. Some of you know me, some of you don't, some of you only see me in pictures. But I'm here today on behalf of CAF. I was a grantee also in 2007. And when I called CAF, I was also like Brittany desperate. I had my beautiful daughter over there already, and we were living in a basement apartment with my sister. And I was working at a restaurant, and I was getting 40 hours a week, but I was making minimum wage. And at that time, I was trying to move, and I couldn't even afford to move. Like, I would call apartments, and they would be like, oh, well, you gotta make 3 times the rent. And if you pay the rent, how you gonna feed your daughter? How you gonna keep the lights on? How you gonna do this? How you gonna do that? So then when I discovered that I was pregnant, that was just like another knock in the face. Then I called and discovered that I couldn't use my medical card that was for my health needs to pay for that abortion. And I was just calling everywhere, and I was like, okay, do you have a payment plan? What can I do? And they were like, it's $400. I was like, $400? I was like, that's the rent. I'm trying to move, you know. And I got off the phone, and I was so discouraged, and I just kept calling back. And then eventually someone gave me the number to CAF, and I called, and I was able to get funding and get my abortion procedure done. And it's just so, that moment in my life, I would say, was a very pivotal moment for me, because I took my reproductive rights into my own hands with the help of CAF. I decided to make a choice for me, because at the end of the day, our reality is, especially for low-income women of color, is mama's babies, daddy's made. And at the end of the day, like, no one is going to be there to do what needs to be done but you. So you have to make that choice of what you feel like you can handle and what you can do. And that's all what reproductive justice is to me. Having those rights, the right to parent, the right to choose, the right to be able to raise your children in the environment that you want to be raised. It all intersects. But if we constantly have things like the Hyde Amendment and parental notification, it's like, what do you do? But once I came to CAF, everybody showed me what to do. And that's why I'm here today.
Thank you so much. What an amazing group of speakers we've had today. Give it up for all of them one more time. Thank you. So whether you are on the stage today or not, just by being here, you are now part of All Above All's Be Bold road trip. And so from now on, you should follow them on Facebook and on Twitter as they make their way across the rest of the cities they're visiting, and as they roll into their final stop September 17th, Washington, D.C., to say enough is enough. That day, your voice will be part of a day of education and action on Capitol Hill. So be sure to check it out. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Some of your pretty faces might be on there. So thank you. Thanks to each and every one of you who showed up. And if you haven't yet, sign the petition to tell Congress to lift the ban on abortion coverage. Snap a selfie over yonder and send a message to Congress saying enough is enough. We are brave, we are united, we are equal. Thank you. Let's go.